it's Eileen from Bates Photography, and today I'm going to show you how to retouch a portrait in a very simple, fast, effective way without spending your entire day doing it and also doing quality work. So though we're going to move pretty quickly, we're still going to make it look natural and beautiful, and at the end you're going to have a wonderful result, and it's not going to look photoshopped or fake as so often pictures can look, because as a good editor you want to make it where somebody says, hey, that's a great photo, and not, wow, that's great retouching. So let's just dive in. I did shoot this picture on a Sony a6500, and this is one of my beautiful models. Her name is Rachel, and first thing I do is I look at white balance. I'm going to go very quickly, and if I'm not completely descriptive on every tool, I may make future videos on those tools. But I like to go over what I use so that it can help you guys get some ideas for your own workflow. So we're going to look at the white balance, and as shot, I look at the number. I shoot this in RAW, so it's 6450. Now, what that means to me is just a number. I kind of know if something's a little warmer or a little cooler. When I go to the auto, I see it's 5800, and obviously the picture got a little cooler. So, though this might be mathematically correct with white balance, or what the computer says is the correct balance, I'm going to actually bring it up to warm it up, because ultimately you're the artist, you're the photographer, it's your vision, and you want to make sure you like it. So, right, I brought that up to about 61, 67, that works. The tint, I'm fine with the way it looks right now, so I'm going to leave that alone. And we're going to go to the exposure. I'm going to bring up this exposure. Obviously it needs to be boosted. You can play with the extremes. I mean, obviously it's way too dark. Let's bring it to, how about, see, this is where I start getting a little finicky, but okay, let's do plus 48. Now contrast, really, as a general rule of thumb, I bump the contrast because it's dynamic, and you can actually see, here's 10, I'm going to move it up, there's 26, it's a bit much, I'm going to, 21, I'm going to put it right there. Now, again, it's all a matter of taste, so you can play with the sliders and see what you enjoy. Now for the highlights, we have a lot going on in this background. I'm going to bring these highlights way down, and that kind of takes care of that extra brightness. And in a landscape picture, I can bring the shadows way up, but obviously in a portrait, it just washes away the beautiful shadows on our hair. So we're going to bring it down, but we're going to still leave the shadows lifted. Plus 36 looks good, so I'm going to keep it there. Now for whites, again, play with that slider, see what you like. It's a sunny day, so I don't mind the whites being up. As a rule of thumb for me, I do plus 14 because it's a sunny day. And that's what I'm basing it on, basically. Okay, with the blacks, same thing. We're going to just kind of eyeball it. Usually when it's bright, sunny out, you want to go down with the blacks because you want the drama. So, I like that there. Down 45. We're going to keep that. Now clarity. So often people bump the clarity, landscape pictures, but for portraits, for myself personally, I like to decrease the clarity. I like the softness. I like what it does to the skin, and then we're going to actually retouch the skin so you can see that coming up. But I like what it does for a portrait to bring it down some. Now the vibrance, for those of you that are not familiar with what vibrance actually does, when you lift the vibrance, you're actually adding saturation to those colors that don't have saturation in the picture. So it's a very subtle way. Oops, I don't know what happened to my screen there. Okay, I put it at plus 21. I kind of like that. Now, you can bring that down, and this is where you get into your devibing, black and white, vintage look. So let's go back to where we were. I was plus 21. I'm happy with that. Now, with the saturation, a really good trick for me, it's worked out well anyway, is if you think the skin looks a little orange, and that's kind of what a lot of people that have been editing for a long time say, that beginners, they can always tell a beginner photo because the skin looks orange. I'm going to take the saturation and I'm going to show you if I drop it drastically. Okay, we're clearly pulling the colors out. So Vibrance, you were adding saturation to those colors that didn't have, what was I just saying? I lost my train of thought there. With the Vibrance, you're adding it in a subtle way. Saturation, it's all the colors you're pulling from. So when you decrease it, it's dramatic. When you lift it, look how bright orange and yellow. And so I'm just going to take this right now. I don't want my skin to look orange, but I don't want to dramatically drop it. It's a game of eyeballing it, seeing what you like, and I took it down 5. So I wanted to explain the Vibrance and Saturation and the differences between those, because I think it helps once you realize that, hey, you know, I want a subtle change, move to the Vibrance. And if you see that little bit of oranginess, if you're on a bright day, and even though you kind of custom adjusted your white balance up here with the temperature and where you wanted it, it sometimes still leaves the skin a little bit orange or yellowish. So I think we just corrected that pretty nicely. Okay, so with the tone curve, again, I'm just going to skip over this. You guys can play with the sliders, and I encourage everyone to do so because it's trial and error. I mean, Lightroom is really user-friendly, and it's fun. It's fun to play with. And all these hues and the colors and the saturation, I'm going to skip over them, but I encourage everyone, again, play with that when you have some free time and just come up with what you like. Split toning, we're not going to do anything with that. We're jumping right ahead to the sharpening, and I'm going to sharpen it by quite a bit. I like somewhere between 50 and 60 for women, so I'm going to keep it 54. I'm going to go to the noise reduction, and it softens it even further. So I'm going to bring it up to, for me, I'm going to bring it up to about 31. Again, we brought down the clarity 10. We're bringing the noise reduction up 31 just to give it an overall soft, appealing look to it. Okay, so we're coming down. I have to put in remove chromatic aberration. That's when you see some fringing of purple and different colors, but I didn't really see too much in this picture. I check it anyway. And I'm going to enable my profile correction. So I'm going to put in my lens. And I shot this with the Zeiss Batis 1.885. Again, that was on my Sony a6500. And I always check out transform. I hit auto. If it doesn't do anything, it really lets you know, again, you were correct straight out of camera. That's done, nice and easy. And vignette, I like to just bring it in. 17 seems to be an awesome number. I kind of use that for everything, and it's not too much. Let me show you double that. Like if you go to 30, 40, it really cuts in a bit. And people like that look, so that's fine. But for this photo, I'm going to stay with 17. And if I want to feather out the edges even more, I can bring up that feather. It lightens it around the edges some more. Now the roundness, you can, it's actually at 0 right now. Let me show you this. I'm going to bring the feather down, and you can see the outline. And then if you wanted to change the shape or the roundness, you can. You know, this actually is a good way of showing it. Let's put it kind of, that's kind of cool right there. And then when we bring our feather back, it disappears, but you were able to see what you did. So that's a little trick that I started doing recently, and I think it's been very helpful. Okay, that brings us to our last dehaze, which I love this tool, and it really just kind of does exactly that. It dehazes things, and you have to be careful not to add too much. So with this particular image, I'm going to add 10 right now. You can always go back. You can tweak anything. Lightroom is, again, user-friendly, so really I encourage everyone to just play. Okay, so we did the overall adjustments, and so now we're going to work on the retouching, and this was pretty simple just to get it to where we wanted it. I'm zooming in, and the first thing that you always kind of look for is, what am I going to remove with the spot removal? We have a couple little pimples here. She actually has very nice skin, so it's not a big deal. You click on this tool here, spot removal, click, And I have a wheel on my mouse. I kind of bring it up and down. I want to bring it down, and I'm just going to click over these pretty quickly, and the computer eventually catches up. You can adjust the size with, for me, the wheel, and there's other ways of doing that. Uh-oh, my computer got a little stuck. There we go. Okay. So down here, you see this little eyelash. It's subtle, but it's there. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger to cover the eyelash, and takes a sample. If you didn't like where it took the sample from, you could move it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to delete that and start again, because there's just a drop of that eyelash sticking out, which means I have to make my wheel bigger. Or I said wheel, my spot bigger, sorry. Now this is giving me grief here. Alright, we're going to try this. Hopefully it's like the third time. Hopefully this should be the charm. Okay. We got it. Alright. So while I'm here, I'm going to look at this right here. This is the natural crease of the eye, and we want to soften this some. So what you can do is you can go in, kind of, I'm going to reduce the size here, and you can, with your mouse, with the left button, you hold it and drag it. And I'm really just going to drag it along here, nothing special. And that will sample, let me bring this out a minute. That will sample a section. Obviously that's not where we want it. We're going to sample it pretty much below the eye. Okay, and that works. My computer is running a little bit slower right at the moment. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in, and we're going to see what that did. Now you can see it definitely, there's still the crease, but we want it natural. We want it looking, again, like this was right out of your camera this way. So we're going to click the spot removal, and if you come down here, there's this little switch. You just click it, and it's going to turn off what you did. Now, it comes in, it's pretty much, that line is there, but it's much darker. So we're going to put it back on again. And there you go. So this is a nice, easy way to quickly retouch under the eyes. And this is a big one for a lot of people. You know, people could just have allergies. People could have a day where, you know, hey, I had a long night, you know, studying for finals. So I'm going to actually take this, and we're going to go just like that. And see what this does under there. Actually okay with that. I'm going to back up. Yeah, I'm okay with that because it still looks very natural. Okay, so we're going to continue now our spot removal. She just, again, she has very nice skin, just a couple blemishes here. So we're going to click that, and we're going to click this one up here. Okay, that should do it. Now we're going to check our work here. Lots of dots. Okay, and we're going to click done, that we're done with the spot removal. And looking at this already, it looks great. So I'm going to show you a fast, easy way to get these eyes popping. So I take my Radial Filter, which is this little circle. So we were on the spot removal, and so I'm jumping around. There's different filters here, but I basically use spot removal. I use Radial Filter. I use adjustment brush. So these three. Now we're going to take this Radial Filter. I'm going to click it, and you can see this word effect here. You can double click it. Brings you back to 0. So again, with my mouse on the left click, I'm just going to click and drag, and you make your circle or oval. And in this case, I'm just going to really do the whole eyeball. Okay, I can bring it down, and there's little arrows you can kind of, I like where this is set, but I'm going to have to fix it over here. So right now, I'm going to bump up the exposure, but I don't want to do too much because, again, I'm going for, hey, I didn't do anything to this picture look. And 0.78 or 0.69, 0.78, that generally works well for me. So I'm going to leave it there for now. And then what I do is I come down to the clarity. I bump it up. I'm going to bump it up to about 36, and I'm going to do the sharpness at the same. Or about the same. We'll do a 33. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so then we're going to right click on it and we're going to duplicate it. Then you drag it over, and here's those little arrows I was talking about. Over here, I'm going to swing it around to work with this eye. And then you can always grab one of these and bring it out, make it a little bit longer if you need to. Don't worry if it extends over the eye, because this is a very, it's a gradual look. This filter looks really great. So I'm going to click out of here. Okay, we're going to go back and see how that looks. And crazy, I mean, when you see the eyes pop, it's too much. This does not look like that crazy eyed look. Now I'm going to show you that crazy eyed look actually, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on the Radial Filters. Boom, right over the eyes. And you can click any one of those. And I'm going to bring the exposure up. Let's say I brought the exposure up to 1.33, and let's say I did the same thing over here, 1.33, okay? All right, so now I want you to see what that looks like. Okay, she looks really bright-eyed, but that doesn't look natural. And the temptation is to bring it up and say, oh, she looks so bright-eyed, but realistically, eyes don't pop out that much. So we want to go back, and we're going to click on each one, drag that exposure down. Now let's say one eye was in a shadow or something. You could change. It doesn't have to be the same. I'm doing it the same for now, and it's working out. Oh, 78. Okay. So eyes, exposure boosted a little bit, clarity and sharpness around the same. Now, this is a dark eye, so I'm not doing anything with the saturation. If you have a light eye, if you want to boost saturation, that'll boost the color. And that's something that you can do on like light blue eyes and green eyes and things like that. But right now, we're going to leave the saturation alone, and I'm happy with that. So we're going to go to, so let's cover the basics that are important. Eyes, which we just did, teeth, lips. So let's go to the teeth, okay? Now we're going to hit our adjustment brush, which again is this one over here on the end. We're clicking that, and what we want to do, right down here, it says clarity. You can actually click that, and they have a preset for teeth whitening. So I'm going to click that, and I have a whole bunch of presets that I had bought. I'm going to click down, but I guess it's in alphabetical order here. Teeth whitening, okay? So we have our brush pretty small. Now let's look at what they have it on. They have it on the exposure 0.40, and they have the saturation down. So we're going to try it and see what that looks like. And we're just painting over. Right now it's looking pretty subtle to me. I'm okay with the way this is looking. We want to just try to not drag it onto the lips. We just want to be careful of that. So we're going to hit done, and we're going to go back out and see how those teeth look. Believe it or not, I think that looks good. You might say that's fine, but I think, because again, I'm crazy with things looking fake, I'm going to click that adjustment brush. You click on the little pin that comes up, and I'm going to bring that exposure down, maybe just a hair. And okay, I'm going to look at that, and to me, subtle, but it works. It looks better, it looks natural, and I'm happy with that. So we're going to come back, and we're going to start actually we're going to do the skin, but I'm going to do the lips first. And what I'm doing with that is I'm going to take my adjustment brush, and I am going to go back to clarity. and I'm going to trace over the lips here. And as I'm doing this, I'm just kind of drawing this on, and we want to see where it's set. So if you look where it's set, oh, it's not set. So we can actually at this point bump it up or bring it down. For lips in general, you might want to bump it up because the contrast is great on lips as well to be seen. Clarity will bring in some contrast naturally, but you can add the contrast and just a little bit, just to bump it up. Now here's a situation where I'm going to add some saturation to these lips just to make them a little bit brighter lipstick. Make them a little brighter with a lipstick looking color. I mean, she has lipstick on, but it's a very natural lipstick. So if you wanted to deepen that, you could certainly do that. Now, you can also, a trick to deepening the lips if you want it to be a darker lipstick, and let's say the model has a lighter one, without being crazy and changing the color scheme, is just simply dropping the exposure. Now, that's ridiculous. It's like, I just literally drew that on. Which actually, that's kind of cool because it shows you what we missed. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a little bit more. It's not a perfect science. So now we'll bring up my exposure, and we're not going to go crazy and make her with white lips here. But what we're going to do is we're going to bump up the exposure, very subtle, 23, I think. Okay, so we have the exposure boosted, we have the clarity up, and we have the saturation up. Listen, if you want to boost the sharpness a little bit, you can as well on those lips. So let's hit done, and let's go back and see how that looks. I'm okay with that. To me, that looks very natural. Just looks like there's a little bit more pigment maybe to the lipstick than the initial. So we're going to now go ahead and work on that skin. So this one, we're going to take our adjustment brush again. We're going to, actually the clarity's there. We can hit that, or it's a preset in Lightroom. You can go down and, let me go back here, soften skin. Okay, so I'm just going to do what they have, which is minus 100 and the sharpness up 25. And I'm going to avoid the eye area with the eyebrows, the eyelashes you want to avoid. I'm going to avoid, obviously, the lips. We just spent time doing them. And I'm going to go ahead and just paint over. Now, you can see that this is absolutely too plastic looking. But that's okay because we're going to go back and we're going to adjust that. So we're just kind of going around here. And we can bring our brush down smaller. And we can get in around the lips. Around the eyebrow. And you can, again, click on the pin and see where you were drawing. All right, I missed in here, so we're obviously going to draw a little bit in here. And we can raise our circle here that we're using for this. And we're going to go ahead and go over this skin down here on the neckline. Actually, I'm going to bring, you can actually go to this square here where your picture is, click on it. That can also drop the image to the spot where you want it. Okay, and all right. Obviously, I do not like this at all. Now, some people might say, but why? It's perfect. It's flawless skin. Because it's so plastic looking that there is nothing natural about it. So we're going to take the clarity, and this is kind of fun. You can actually go way up and say, okay, wow. We can go back to 0 where it would have been, okay, before we started this. But we're going to bring it down in little increments and just see what we like. We still want to see visible pores. Let's look at minus 24. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm just going to go around and look at it. So this is down minus 24. We did our blemishes. Nice. You can still see even like the clarity and the little goose pimples she had there. Overall, I'm very happy with this because that looks natural to me. And let's go back to our adjustment brush. And this one right here just shows again if we missed anything. I'm not really worried about those couple of spots. It's a general overall appearance. It's so subtle and I love it. I'm going to just, you know what, bring this clarity just down ever so slightly, but it's still minus 20. And that really beautifully and naturally softens the skin. So we're going to hit done. Awesome. We can go right back to our basic adjustment. And we can look and say, all right, is there anything that this image needs? I think the dehaze was good where we had it. Yep, I'm going to keep it at 10. I do see one more thing that I love to add that I didn't add yet, and that is the center light. I hit Radial Filter, and I know I moved fast there, but let me do that again. I hit Radial Filter, and our other ones came up for the eyes. We're going to do a general large one here over our subject. So in this case, it's our beautiful model, Rachel. And here we go. I am just creating this with my left click, and I drug the circle to create the shape. You can also spin this. There's that little arrow again, you know, just showing you guys what you can do. And overall, what we can do here is give it a nice center light. So by doing that, oops, we're going to go back to the effect and bring it to 0. I'm actually going to change this to exposure now. So I'm going to bring this exposure up. Yep, see that? This is like the finishing touch for me. It's like the icing on the cake or the cherry on top. Okay, so I bring it to 51, and that's kind of a general, you know, number that I like to use. I like it, and I can look at the temperature and I can warm it up. So I'm going to warm it up. Wow, that's way too warm. And that's not enough, so I'm going to just take it to 6. Gives it a little bit of that glow. And the last thing I'm looking at here, I'm really loving this, is when we brought down our clarity overall, we lost a little bit of the detail in her sweater. So we can take our adjustment brush and we can bring the effects to normal. I'm going to go over to the clarity again. And with the clarity, I'm going to bring this up to 26 works. I'm going to, with my wheel of my mouse, just go over this sweater. And like magic, this sweater comes to life with a little more detail. And actually, again, you have the pin here. You can now mess with that. You can go up with that. You know what? That's not bad. I'm not going to go that high, but I'm going to bring it up now to about 47. And I'm going to bring that sharpness up. We don't want to go too much. Let's bring that back down, about 17. All right. There you have it. I think that's great. I'm always sensitive, like I said before, about the saturation. I can go back now and just see I had it down 5. And let's take it down 10. And I think that just took a little bit of the edge of that golden skin off. 7. All right. Yep, I'm going to keep it at 10. And there you have it. We did a quality job in, you know, about 20 minutes. And let's look here and see the before and after. I just absolutely, I love this part too, because when you look at this flat image, obviously in RAW, I always say you do need to edit, you have to sharpen and do all that. But when you look at that flat image and you just, you know, created this beautiful retouched portrait that is just so airy and light, and, you know, the client is going to love it. They're going to look at that and say, oh my gosh, your work is fabulous. You want a good image to start with. You want a good image out of camera. But when you really just nail the retouching, and it's going to make that client just go, wow, I didn't know I could look so beautiful. And so that's the response as a photographer that we love. It's like, well, you do look beautiful, and I just help that along too. But anyway, so if you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer to the best of my ability. I always say I don't know every aspect of Lightroom. I only know what I like to use, what I've kind of come down to as my go-to tools, and I love to share that with the hopes that this could help you in your editing and making it simpler and not stressing so much. And also, my big thing is making it overall look natural and as the picture was intended to look. So thank you guys. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.